you need to be a wine buff or even speak French to plan a trip around France's vineyards? Think again. Today, Paris-based wine expert Elisa shares how to choose your region, when to go, and how to taste your way around France, whether you know your Bordeaux from your Burgundy or not.
Welcome to the Global Travel Planning Podcast. Your host is founder of the Global Travel Planning website, Tracy Collins. Each week, Tracy is joined by expert guests as she takes you on a journey to destinations around the world, sharing travel inspiration, itinerary ideas, and practical tips to help you plan your next adventure. Join us as we explore everywhere from bustling cities to remote landscapes, uncover cultural treasures, and discover the best ways to make your travel dreams a reality.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Global Travel Planning Podcast. Now, this week is a bit of a first for us because it's our very first episode all about wine travel. And it is one for anyone who's ever enjoyed a glass of French wine and thought, I'd love to see where this actually comes from. There's something special about planning a trip around the people and places behind the bottle. The small family domains, the long lunches, and the villages you might never otherwise find. Whether you're a serious wine lover or simply wine curious, my guest is going to show us how a trip like that comes together. I'm joined by Elisa, a travel blogger and wine expert based in Paris, who creates custom wine trips across France. Hi, Elisa. Welcome to the podcast this week. Can you introduce yourself and tell listeners how you came to combine French travel with wine?
Bonjour, everybody. I'm Elisa, French travel blogger and travel planner based in Paris. I help people pair great wines with extraordinary experiences in France through my blog, France Bucket List, and my Instagram account, Uncork France. Well, I love to travel and discover new places in France, and I love French wine. So my trips have always included a visit or two to a winery or a wine tasting. At a certain point, I decided to study wine in a more serious way. I completed the French Wine Ambassador program and the SSET certification. And today, I bring these two passions together through my blog and my travel planning services.
It's fantastic. Honestly, I didn't know until I started talking to you about that you could kind of combine that, the love of the travel and your love of wine, and actually provide a service for people who want to kind of visit France and taste some of the amazing wines. Now, as you said, you're studying the Bourgogne Masters at the moment. What does becoming a wine expert actually involve, Elisa?
It means busy weekends. I do this alongside my full-time work, so I spend a big part of my weekend studying. It also means staying open-minded. When you study wine, you need to ask yourself, why does this wine taste this way? Why is it so different from that wine made just a few kilometers away? And of course, it means many tastings, but I like to call them educational tastings.
I love that. I think, well, it is absolutely, isn't it? Because you're tasting all these wines and learning every time that you taste something new. I have to admit, I know not that much about wine. I'm more of a gin drinker than a wine drinker. So this is actually interesting to learn. I did actually live in France for a while, so it's interesting to learn about kind of French wines 30 years after I actually lived in France. So for somebody who does love wine and has actually never planned a trip around it, what makes France for you the wine travel destination?
Because France produces some of the best wines, and actually many French winemaking techniques are now a benchmark worldwide. But you know this well, beyond wine, France is also a beautiful country to visit with amazing landscapes, food, and culture.
Absolutely. It is a beautiful, beautiful country, that's for sure. Now, I know France has got many wine regions, so it can feel overwhelming. I mean, as I say, I lived in France for a few years and I still don't understand about all the different French regions. So can you give us a quick tour of the big names like Bordeaux, Burgundy, Champagne, and what makes each different?
Well, this is a very difficult question to answer in a few words. To summarize a lot, I would say that Bordeaux is known for its great chateau and red wines, especially blends with Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot. Bourgogne is about Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and terroir. Small vineyards, unique places, and the idea that each climat can create a different wine. And Champagne is the home of the most famous sparkling wines, with a long history and spectacular underground cellars. In the end, each region has its own wines, story, traditions, culture, food, and that's what makes wine travel in France so exciting.
I guess you can keep returning to France again and again and visit a different region every time. I suppose you're never going to get bored, are you? You can just keep coming back and go and visit somewhere different every single time. So if someone only has time for one region on their first trip to France, where would you send them and why?
This is another difficult question because it really depends on the person. My job is to create custom wine trips, so I first need to know what they like, the style of wines they enjoy, eventually the grape varieties, their interests, and the kind of experience they are looking for.
And I know we're going to talk at the end a little bit about the fact that you tailor make trips for wine lovers in France. And I guess when people commission you to do that, then you kind of go through all those questions with them.
Yes, of course. There is a short conversation before starting going through the itinerary because I need to know the persons and what they like.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we know that a lot of people, when they visit France for the first time, that Paris will be kind of top of their list of places that they want to visit. And a lot of people base themselves in Paris. So if somebody's in Paris, they're kind of designing their itinerary and they only have time to visit one wine region, which would be the one that works best, or which regions work best as a day trip from Paris if they wanted to kind of fit that into their Paris itinerary?
Champagne is the best option. There are many day tours from Paris, so you don't need to drive. And if you prefer a self-guided experience, you can also take a train to Épernay and walk along the Avenue de Champagne with a couple of champagne houses and enjoy the experience at your own pace.
And is that something that you find is a very popular option?
Yes, there are many day tours, all kinds, whether you prefer visiting the most famous champagne houses or smaller growers, you can do everything with a day tour.
Okay, that's brilliant. Now, we did talk about, we did a bit of a quick tour of those big names, Bordeaux, Burgundy, Champagne, that kind of everybody associates with France. But what are the lesser known wine regions that you think deserve some more attention?
Oh, there are many. But the first ones that come to my mind are Jurançon and Madiran in the southwest of France. For example, in June, I co-hosted a wine retreat there. And we visited different kinds of winery, from small family wineries to bigger domains. We met wonderful people and tasted incredible wines. And for those who are not familiar with these appellations, Jurançon is famous for its sweet white wines, but they also make excellent dry whites. And Madiran is known for Tannat, which is a black grape variety that was born in this area.
Okay.
So I would say these are great regions for travelers who want to discover local grape varieties and a more authentic side of France.
That sounds nice. And I guess it'll be not quite as busy as some of those more famous regions.
Not at all. Yes.
That's good.
And there are lovely places to visit there.
And what about regions that you think might be a bit overrated or overcrowded? Would you have an alternative to that, or would you say kind of, again, I suppose it depends on the type of wine that people like? I mean, you just appealed to me because I err on the side of kind of sweeter white wines. I love ports and fortified wines and that sort of. Those are my wines rather than the kind of drier wines. So what would you kind of recommend? Like if I don't know if there's an obvious region that would kind of jump out to you if I mentioned that those are the sort of wines that I like. And where would you kind of recommend that I would head?
I wouldn't say overrated, but for example, Bordeaux is a great wine region. Everybody knows that, but it can feel a bit crowded, especially in the most famous places. So for travelers looking for a quieter experience, I would suggest the Bergerac, which is the area around the city of Bergerac. It's just east of Bordeaux. They have the same grape varieties, similar wine styles, But this region offers a better value for money and smaller domains where visits can feel more personal. And for people like you who love sweet wines, you can also discover Monbazillac instead of Sauterre. It's also located east of Bordeaux and works with the same grape varieties, Noble Rot also, and it's a wonderful alternative to most popular Sauterre.
Okay, so that sounds doable and sounds really interesting, as you say, as well, more cost effective, and also a bit more of an authentic experience, because you're going to go to a smaller vineyard, smaller winery, so less commercialized, would you say?
Yes, definitely. And Chateau de Monbazillac is wonderful. It's a very beautiful building.
Oh, next time I'm back in Europe, Elisa, I think I'll have to come to France and try some of these wines with you. I think it sounds really good. Now, if I was going to do, obviously, let's talk a bit about wine travel itself. So, talk us through a typical wine visit. Can you just turn up at the chateau? Is there an open door, or do you actually have to book, or does it depend where you're going?
Well, the beauty of wine visits in France is that there is no typical visit. It depends on the personality of your host, how the winery works, the time of the year, and how busy they are. For example, during the wine retreat I co-hosted in June, we visited different domains of different sizes in the same wine area, and every visit was unique. But I would say that the one thing they all have in common is that you need to book in advance, because welcoming visitors is not their main activity. They need to get organized.
So you need to, and how long in advance would you say you need to book?
It depends on the domains. The most prestigious domains require advance booking, perhaps a month in advance, while the smaller domains can be just 1 week.
Okay, so still in advance though, even a week in advance, it's worth knowing that. Now, you won't believe this, but I used to be fluent in French, but this is 30 odd years ago, which is why I struggle with Bourgogne, not being able to pronounce it, get my French speaking head on. But for those people who don't speak, now when I go back to France, I'm not too bad. After a while, I kind of get slipped back into it. But I know this is a common question that I get, especially from people from countries who don't necessarily learn French. Do visitors need to speak French? And are tasters, like if doing the wine tasting, is it kind of beginner friendly? So if somebody who's never done a wine tasting before, they go to it and they feel like, I'm not going to understand the language, I'm not sure what to do. How will it work for those sort of people?
Well, domains welcoming visitors usually speak English, or at least one person speaks English. And for example, if you go to Alsace, chances are they also speak German. And in the Languedoc, you may also find places close to the border where people speak Catalan and Spanish. So there is no problem. And you don't need to know anything about wine to enjoy wine tasting. The best visits are about asking questions, exchanging with the other participants, discovering new things. And wine professionals love sharing their passion, so beginners are always welcome.
That's really nice. And do tastings, I don't know how many tastings you would kind of do in a day, but do they cost a lot, or do they vary in cost? And is there an expectation to buy wine when you've done tasting?
It can be anything from free tastings to 100 plus euros, depending on the prestige of the domain and the wines you taste. In general, you're not expected to buy wine at the end of the visit unless it was a free tasting. But of course, many visitors like to take home a few bottles from the domains they loved. And to be honest, you won't find these wines cheaper than at the domain itself. So it's always good if you really like a wine. And also for smaller appellations, the wines are mostly enjoyed locally, so they can be very difficult to find elsewhere. I'm thinking about tiny appellations like Cassis or Belay in southern France. So every time I travel to these places, I always come back with a couple of bottles, because it's very difficult to find them even in Paris.
So I bet you've got a pretty good wine cellar, Elisa, then.
No, not at all. I live in a small apartment in Paris, so I cannot store many bottles.
So I guess you bring them home and enjoy them.
Exactly.
Now, obviously, if you're tasting wine, you're going to get a little bit tipsy. that's going to happen. So obviously getting around is important because you don't want to be driving around and drinking it. So what is the best way if you're going to be doing some wine tastings to get around? Is it best to do a tour? Is it best to, obviously you do tours yourself. Is it possible by train to reach some of these places? How would you organize to go and do wine tastings?
I would say it depends on the wine region, but in most cases you need a car to explore because vineyards and domains are often far from train stations and villages. If you want to taste without worrying about driving, a guided tour or a private driver is the best option. Of course, a private driver is more expensive, but you can choose the domains you want to visit and decide how much time you want to spend at each one. And for example, if you decide to visit the Val de Loire wine region, you can travel by bike, following the famous Loire à Vélo, which is the Loire by bike itinerary. I've done part of it. It's mostly flat, and it's a wonderful experience.
That sounds amazing. I had never heard of that. That sounds really good. Now, obviously, if you're on your bicycle cycling around and you want to buy wine, I guess that could be a little bit more difficult unless you've got a pannier, you can shove it in the basket. If you're going to buy wine when you go around, because I just know I can hear listeners going, but I might want to buy some of these wines and I might want to send them back to America or might want to send them back to Australia. Is there a way that some of these places will send the wines back? Or if people buy a couple of bottles, is there a kind of way that you say, this is a good way to get the wines back? I know that you can buy some packing on Amazon, for example, if you wanted to put wines, to take wines home with you. But I'm always a little bit worried about that.
Yes, many domains offer international shipping. And some, if you buy a certain number of bottles, offer free shipping. Or eventually you can wrap a couple of bottles in a towel and bring them home in your suitcase. Just remember that transportation is stressful for wines, so it's better to wait a couple of months to let it settle before opening the bottle.
Oh, that's a really good tip. So if anybody's planning to go to France and thinking, want to add some wine travel into their itinerary, is there a best time of year to do that? Is there for example, is harvest season a magical time to visit, or is that a time to avoid?
Each season offers a different experience in the vineyards and the cellars, so it really depends on what you're looking for. Harvest season is always as magical as it sounds because people are extremely busy. And for example, in Alsace, most of the hiking trails through the vineyards are closed to visitors during the harvest. Personally, I love visiting just before the harvest when the grapes are fully developed and you can take nice pictures, or right after when the cellars are in full activity. It's also a great time for the Fête des Vendanges, which are the harvest festivals.
I was going to ask you, are there any particular wine festivals events that are worth planning a trip around?
There are many. Again, I actually have a wine festival calendar by month on my Instagram profile, and I will soon publish a more detailed article on my travel blog. Personally, I never miss the Grand Tasting Fair in Paris in December, where you can find all kinds of French wines. And I've also already booked my ticket for the wine fair in Beaune in November, which is dedicated 100% to Bourgogne wines. And the arrival of Beaujolais Nouveau on the Thursday of November, it's always a fun event to celebrate, even if the wines are not the best.
It just sounds like a lot of fun, though. I will link to your calendar on your Instagram. And when you've got that article on your website as well, Elisa, will link to that as well. So we can share that in the show notes, because that'll be really helpful to see, because they do sound like a lot of fun, these wine festivals.
Okay, yes.
Now, do you have a personal favourite wine region and a favourite memory from your wine travels? Are they kind of connected, or is it just a favourite region that you love, but you've got something really, a lovely memory that you have about trying your wines?
Well, Bourgogne is my personal favorite. That's why I continue studying about these wines. In my opinion, it produces some of the best wines in France. And I would say the wine retreats I have co-hosted are some of my favorite wine trips, because I love sharing these experiences with other wine lovers and discovering domains altogether.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Do you have an experience or a specific tasting, a walk or a village that you tell every wine lover to put on their France bucket list? Is there something that you just go, oh, you really don't want to miss this?
I wouldn't talk about a specific experience or wine tasting. My advice would be to be open-minded and go beyond the most famous bottles, because some of the best wine experiences happen in smaller domains where you can meet the people behind the wines and discover places that many visitors miss.
It does sound really interesting, Elisa, to do this. And do you think there are mistakes that people make when planning a wine trip to France?
I would say the biggest mistakes are a lack of research and a lack of planning. Many people don't realize that wineries are not always open for visitors and you need to book in advance. And you know this well, logistics are also an important part of trip planning. And it's also important to choose the right region for your interests, because every wine area has different grape varieties, wine styles, and a different overall experience. For example, I'm thinking about a sponsor wine tour I took in June also. It was a day tour from Paris to Chablis, which is in northern Bourgogne. And I shared this tour with some visitors from overseas. And these visitors didn't know that Chablis is all about Chardonnay. So they were a bit disappointed because they were expecting to taste red wines. And, Chablis doesn't have red wines. So that's why research is very important.
Yeah, definitely. I guess that leads me into the question I always ask at the end of my podcast. So, Elisa, what's the one tip you'd share with anyone planning their first French wine trip?
I'd say to look for the full experience. For me, the best wine trip is not just about tasting great wines. It's about getting to know a place, meeting the people behind the bottles, enjoying the local food, and combining wine with unique experiences like truffle hunting when it's the right season, a hot air balloon ride over the vineyards, or cycling that Loire à vélo. That's how you create lasting memories.
So, Elisa, you help travelers plan these trips through your grape escapes and consultations. So where can people find you and what do you offer?
Indeed, I offer wine travel consultations with 2 different packages depending on what kind of help you need. You can find all my offers on my website, France Bucket List, under wine travel planning section in the menu.
Perfect. And we're going to link to that in the show notes, and that's not going to be a problem at globaltravelplanning.com/episode 101. But thanks so much for Elisa for coming on this week and sharing about your passion for French wine. And I hope to meet up with you when I get to France next time.
My pleasure. I love talking about wine, so I enjoyed this conversation a lot.
And that brings us to the end of another episode of the Global Travel Planning Podcast and our very first taste of wine travel here on the podcast. If Elisa has you dreaming of vineyards and long French lunches, you will find everything mentioned today over in the show notes at globaltravelplanning.com/episode 101, including where to find Elisa, her blog, and her wine travel consultations. If you know someone who is planning a trip to France or who simply loves a good glass of wine, do share this episode with them. And if you enjoy the podcast, a review really does help other travellers find us. But that just leaves me to say, until next time on the Global Travel Planning Podcast, happy global travel planning. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Global Travel Planning Podcast. For more details and links to everything we discussed today, check out the show notes at globaltravelplanning.com. Remember, if you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a review on your favourite podcast app, because your feedback helps us reach more travel enthusiasts just like you. Anyway, that leaves me to say, as always, happy global travel planning.